Hi, this is Jim's Little Boat. I'm Jim and I'm sitting here in my shop. I am deep into the project of replacing the coax that goes through the deck. The radio was working great. I could hear Seattle Coast Guard just fine and all the boats in Lower Puget Sound, but it was 40 years old and it just broke. So follow me along on this adventure. As usual, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I'll just make it up as I go along. And for whatever value you might find, I'll show you how I replace the coax going through the deck. Well, this just sucks. The coax connector broke off. I thought I could fix it. I had enough room, but the shielding is just, it's probably 40 or 50 years old. Terribly corroded. It's all black. So we have to figure out how to get new coax there. This coax is actually built inside the deck and goes into the cabin. I don't know if we'd be able to pull any or not. We'll just have to experiment and see what happens. Here is where that coax and the running light wires enter the liner and go up toward the deck. There's some slack. When I pull on that cable, I can feel it bounce around inside the deck liner, but I don't think I can ever retrieve it. Well, dang it. I have tried pulling it back into the cabin. I've tried pulling it through the cabin. I can't get it to go either way, and even if I could, there's just no chance I could fish another wire using this one. So I think it's best to just cut my losses and put in a new cable. I can run it along the cabin top and try to hide it behind the curtain rod. So like all of these things you don't really want to do, this is probably a blessing. Since I'm going to abandon that wire, I can get a new compression fitting with a nice new O-ring, deck mount, better washer, install that better. Nice new coax connector, end the whole thing with some heat shrink on the backside. So it'll actually probably be a much better install. I sucked it up and went over to West Marine. New deck fitting was only about $9. Coax connector was $13. And I bought way more coax than I needed at $229 a foot. I drilled my little exploratory hole and it comes out right in front of the curtain rod gizmo and right next to the pedestal. And the deck in between seemed okay. So I guess we'll go ahead with this plan. I don't usually do the thing where you over drill the hole and fill it with epoxy, then re-drill it. But you know, I think in this particular case, given the potential for leakage into what is now a sound deck core, I might just go ahead and do that. I'm running out of time before I go on vacation, and I want that epoxy in the deck before I go. So I took this old kitty litter bucket and made up a deck heater to keep the epoxy warm while it sets up. Mixed up some West System epoxy, put in some high density filler and some fast set hardener, and tried to keep it kind of liquidy so it would pour down into that hole. We'll go out and put it in. It's 45 degrees today. Hope this works out. Well, there's our little bucket heater sitting on top of it, and I've got a heater down inside the boat going. So hopefully this will all set up. That turned out to be a pretty deep hole. It ate up all of 3 pumps of West System stuff. So maybe this deck isn't cored, or maybe it has some issues I don't know about. Well, that little spot of epoxy hardened up nicely with this deck heater and some heat down below. I cleaned it up with a chisel and I sanded it, and I think I'm ready to go on to drilling the hole. Well, it came right down through the middle of the curtain track, but that's fine. I don't use that anyway. Time to go on vacation. I will remove the curtain tracks, run the wire, and get it over to the radio when I get back from Mexico. This will be the outside fitting, so it's probably best not to copy me. I can never get this part to slide over the cable, so I just push it down as far as I can. And once it's all done, I'll move that heat shrink up there. So first step, get rid of the outside insulation, expose the braid, and get the ferrule down there so you can shove it all down later. The more patiently you tease this out, the better job you'll get. I just use a utility knife and patience. I got that wire all pushed back and it's neat enough. I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and trim off the extra little pieces. The wire is actually too fine for a pair of diagonal cutters to work very well. Then you leave about 1/8 of an inch of that inner insulation, and expose the center conductor. Then you put the Teflon washer on and then the metal washer over the top of that. Then you screw the outer barrel over the ferrule and put it all together. And if you look in there, you can see some wires. We're going to have to put some solder in there in a moment. Let me get it in better focus. And there's the center conductor. That will require some solder. Got a heat shrink on there. Follow the instructions. I did use 1 drop of solder. It's supposed to be a solderless fitting. And of course, you have to solder the tip. So it's probably time to get the ohm meter and see if this works before we install it. For install, we'll just shove the wire through the top hole in the boat, and then we'll have to put another coax connector on once it's in the boat. Let's see what we have here. Center conductor to center conductor, 0 ohms, that's a good thing. Center conductor to outside conductor, infinite ohms, that's a good thing. And shielding to shielding is 0 ohms. That's a good thing. So far, everything's okay. This little on-deck fitting didn't come with a nice tidy rubber gasket, so I think we'll go ahead and reuse the old one from the previous owner. Seemed to have held up good for more than 40 years. That's the deck plate mounted with a rubber washer, 4200 under the washer, in between the washer and the fitting, inside the fitting, not meant to turn. I think it's as waterproof as it's going to get. Next thing to do now is get inside the cabin and hook up that coax over to the radio. Not real happy with the way this wire installed, but it's functional, it's out of the way, it's not going to get snagged. Brought that wire down along the side. It goes through the bulkhead. It's tied in with a bunch of other wire that's there. I did not use the conduit that was already there. The coax for the radio is just going to lay on the shelf. There's always so much stuff there, you'll never see it anyway. Well, the coax is installed, and even without an antenna, it seems to be working. I'm getting the weather on channel 3. I'm not totally happy with the install. I showed you the wire on the cabin top, but I don't know what else to do. So we'll call it good enough for now. Thanks for watching Jim's Little Boat, and I hope to see you out on the water real soon.